let's talk about what makes Blue Mesa Minerals different than other mineral buying companies. And it's really kind of hard to say in a way. Most mineral buying companies are not out there to rip you off. And I think a lot of them want to imply that they're the only honest guys in town. And it's probably not really true. I know a lot of other buyers who are also ethical and can close quickly, and they have a really great team. There are a lot of buyers that are good. There are also, I'm sure everyone knows, there are also the scoundrels out there. There are people who don't really have the capital and they just want to flip the minerals. So they get you to agree to sell at a certain price. They put a long term on the PSA, which is a purchase and sale agreement, and then that way they can go and find a buyer to flip them to. So there's certainly companies like that exist, but I'm not going to go and tell you that we're the only ethical people in town, because that's just not true. So instead, let's go through what really sets Blue Mesa Minerals apart. And I think the number one thing is that I'm just like you. I started off as a mineral owner. In fact, I was a very reluctant mineral owner. I will link to my story in case you haven't seen it. But the bottom line is that my dad had a very tiny interest in a Texas oil well, and it was his pride and joy, and I couldn't have cared less. But as his personal representative, I needed to learn about minerals, and the circumstances of his death were just really tragic and traumatizing, I guess. And so focusing on the minerals gave me something else to focus on, other than the details of wrapping up, the whole situation. So the more I dived into it, the more I ended up liking about it, and the more I realized that my previous misconceptions and thoughts were not correct. And I started buying other minerals because what I inherited was so tiny that once I split it with my sister, and then I was going to split it with my kids one day, and I thought it's just not going to be worth anything. So the minerals became something that were really sentimental to me. And so I started buying more minerals, and I really didn't know anything when I first started. I needed the help of a landman to guide me. Thankfully, I found a really good one. But with each purchase, I learned more. And so I'm entirely self-taught. I am not a landman. I didn't go to school to learn about the oil and gas industry. I have learned about it just from experience. I'm also not a finance person. I don't have an MBA, and I don't really speak that language. And sort of along those lines, I'm actually not, a lot of mineral buyers are backed by either private equity funds or venture capital funding. And I don't do either. I'm entirely self-funded. I use the royalties from the minerals that I buy to buy more minerals. And it's sort of a snowball effect. And I prefer to grow more organically like that, because I don't want to give away equity in my company. I don't want to be beholden to anyone, and I want to maintain the control, and I want to maintain all the royalties. So I've chosen to go that path instead, and that's very, very different than most mineral buyers. Also, I am a woman, and there aren't that many women in this business, so that's something that's a little bit different as well. I also buy small mineral rights. Most mineral buyers won't go near anything that is under about a $50,000 value. That's really a sweet spot, $50,000 to maybe $5 million. But I will buy things that are larger, but I also buy things that are small, because the small things add up. And I find that there's just a real need for that, because of the 12 million mineral owners or royalty owners out there, most of them own a really small royalty. And a lot of times it's really hard for them to sell, because it's not really worth somebody's time and effort to acquire something that just really doesn't bring in that much revenue. I used to reject those. I used to send them to someone else. But a couple years ago, I started buying the small royalties. And it's still an ongoing experiment to see whether that's going to work out in my favor or not. But I do buy the small royalties that other people don't want, and that includes minerals that are in older oil and gas fields and in states where you don't typically see mineral rights. Like, I even have minerals in Illinois, and that's definitely not one that makes the top 25 list of oil and gas producing states. Most of my minerals are in Texas, Kansas, Oklahoma, New Mexico, kind of the mid-continent area, but I do buy outside of that area also. I mentioned before that I don't flip minerals. I keep whatever I buy, and I only buy producing minerals. Well, that's not totally true. I buy producing minerals, and if there's non-producing minerals, I'll take those along with it, but the value is generally based on the producing minerals. I can't really put money, because I'm self-funded, I can't put money into something that may be drilled, in a couple of decades. I have to buy things that are producing now. Also, my main focus is to provide education. When you first inherit mineral rights, it's like drinking from a fire hose, and really there's so much information, and there's so many ways that somebody could take advantage of you. And so part of my goal is to provide you with some education about the mineral rights, but also when I give you an offer, I usually give you maps and graphs and charts and background information so that you really know what you're selling. Because a lot of mineral owners, it's sort of an abstract idea and they don't really understand what they own. So I feel like that's an important thing, and it's something that perhaps sets me aside from other mineral buyers and other mineral acquisition companies. If you would like an offer on your mineral rights, then I will put a link to the website, which is bluemesaminerals.com. I'll put a link below, and you can just fill out the form, or you can call me. Either way is good. I always love to have a conversation with somebody and kind of get the background on their minerals. One other thing is I've discovered that every family has their own story, and the mineral rights they're not just interest in real property. It's part of their family history, and that story is something that I really love to hear about. And I feel like as I acquire other minerals, I am absorbing these family stories. I actually write them down and make sure that they stay with those minerals so that that family story isn't lost over time. You think you're going to remember, but you end up not remembering. So some of them are more memorable than others, but I do write it down and keep that information.